Welcome to the Sideline Report. I'm Marvin Jackson. Well, Washington goes to the top of the NFC East by beating the Giants in a big game at FedEx Field. And here joining me to discuss the Washington Redskins is, of course, Donna Hopkins, always here with us. Thanks, Donna. And Lake Lewis Jr. is here with us again. Your second time here. Got to keep coming back, man.
I had a good time the first time, so hopefully this one's better.
Yeah, me and you are teaming up. That's right.
Of course.
Now, I tell you, is it fair to say that Washington, this was a big game for Jay Gruden, one of the biggest for him since he's been here?
Actually, I wrote an article last week before the game that stated that this is the biggest game of his coaching life. That's actually the name of the article, and it got a lot of play with some fans. Some people thought maybe I was being a little biased in defending some of his decisions, and I've been kind of critical of Jay Gruden over the last 2 years. I was critical of the way he handled the whole Robert Griffin, demotion. Mm-hmm. But I think you have to look at what he's done, and he's done some things well. One of those things is that he hasn't lost a team that could have gone the other way. I mean, this team's battled every game, even games where they've got blown out. They still played hard, and to me, that's a sign of a coach that has his locker room. So, big win for them, big win for Kirk Cousins. It just gives us something else to talk about. And being out at Redskins Park every day, I got to tell you, it's a nice feeling to not have the drama over the park every day.
Yeah, and like you say, it was a big win for the coaches, Kirk Cousins, but as a team, it was a big win. Mm-hmm. And Gruden talked about the energy as far as on the sidelines, and it started there because he said that it was a lot of energy and he could feel that. But the players also talked about, and I asked them, I said, did you feel the energy? They said, it didn't start there. It started the night before at the hotel, and it spilled into the locker room. But I found it interesting even more so because Sean Gosen said that when they came into the locker room before the game, how you joke around and everything. He said it was none of that. He said they were so focused and everything. And I think the focus has shifted. This is not playtime anymore. And that's what they've got to do at this stage of the game as far as you got to come with that energy every day.
Is it true, Lake, that he's pretty much handed over the team to some of the leaders? Because that's what I'm hearing also.
It's funny because last week, Niles Paul, who's injured, we're friends, and he kind of got on me because I tweeted this team after the Carolina game. I said, it's apparent this team doesn't have that one guy that's going to go through the locker room and challenge guys and get in their face, and he didn't like that. So I talked to Chris Baker after this game and asked him, is he a vocal guy? And he said he leads by example. So, I think that a lot of guys are starting to see what it takes to win. Yeah. I don't think they really have that one guy per se that's going to be, the linchpin for everyone. I don't think they have that, but I think they have a collective group of guys. Jason Hatcher's another veteran that, is a professional. Mm-hmm. So I think this locker room's full of a bunch of professionals, and maybe someone will stand up and, take to the forefront, but as long as you're winning, I think that they can deal with what they have.
Exactly.
So you were talking about defensive guys, and let's talk about which part of the team was more important on Sunday. Or is it just that they all played well?
Let me just say this. Gruden talked about the fact that the defense was flying all around, and that was good to see. But he said that at this stage of the season, it's the defense where you go for your meal ticket. Mm-hmm. So I would say right now it's the defense because it starts there, because that was the first time that I saw, and you can chime in, that I saw the defensive front seven really putting the pressure, and that disrupted Manning a lot. But the secondary, the sweet thing Hatcher said is he's got to give the credit to the secondary. They deserve it all, because this was a secondary with some young guys like Quentin Dunbar, mm-hmm. but they came at them as far as they played solid. They didn't play soft, and that was the most that I've seen them is really come out like that. And I like the defense, the fact that they played man to man most of the time, right?
They did. There was another facet I think that played a lot into them playing well, and that's the fact that the Giants can't run the football.
Yeah.
And you go back to Carolina last week. Jonathan Stewart, and they just they were a physical football team, and all the games where you saw some of the deficiency in the defensive front is when they've played balanced teams. So, this up-and-coming game Monday night, Dallas, they're another team that they don't really have a bell cow as far as a running back.
McFadden, you don't think he is?
I think
running the ball pretty good.
he's been playing well, but he's not a guy that you're going to put on the on front of their brochure to feature.
Their offensive line is one of the best.
One of the best
still.
in the league. Difference now is that Tony Romo won't be behind center, so I don't want to jump ahead, but they have a lot of things that are playing into their hands going forward.
Yeah.
And actually, started to write something today. It kind of reminds me of 2012. I mean, this whole thing is starting to play itself out very similar, where they kept their head above water, the first 10, 11 weeks, and now it's time. It's time to go on a run, and you have a very favorable schedule.
Only, can I just throw this in? I got to throw this in. Only if they can cut down on these penalties, because penalties are killing them.
Yes.
Because Jordan Reed had 3 in the first half. I'm like, what in the world is going on? And think about the last 2 weeks, they've had 16 penalties for 148 yards. But the key thing in that is they killed some drives that should have been touchdowns because of the penalties and everything. Not just the offense, but the defense and all of that. That's an area that Gruden said that they've got to clean up.
Well, that's what Trent Williams was talking about. But one thing I noticed is the turnovers. I mean, there were no turnovers on our side, but we had, 3 turnovers from them? And that's the defense again.
When Kurt doesn't turn the ball over, he's 6-2, right?
Exactly. And they had a couple that Giants should have capitalized on. But at the end of the day, you look at the stat line. And, there was another stat when Donna's talking about how well the defense has played, and it's kind of misleading, but it's a stat that was there. Last week was the first game they gave up 300 yards all season, and that was kind of a mop-up time for Eli. So, for a much maligned secondary that's been banged up, and it seems like a lot of the pieces are starting to come together now for them to make a run.
Especially with Golson back there leading them.
Absolutely.
And Breland has all the secondary people are really stepping up.
Yeah.
I'd like for them to play a little bit more man. We saw that. We were talking about that. I sit next to Don at the game.
We were chiming all the time.
Yeah.
When they play physical, they're corners, and that's Breland's game. He's not a guy that should be 10 yards off a guy.
Right.
And when people talked about Culliver going down, I actually said, of course he's a really good player, but I thought Will Blackman earlier in the year had really played well. So now you have him back, and he had a pretty good football game. So everything's there for them. It really is.
All right. Well, we're going to talk more about this Washington football team, but we're going to take a break right now. We're going to come back and talk about Redskins fans in the Carolinas.
All right.
How about that, huh? All right. Well, we'll be back in a moment, so don't go away.